It's the policy of Turner Broadcasting System to provide equal employment opportunities to qualifiable applicants without regards to race, color, religion, sex, age, or national origin. This is the Superstation, WTBS, Atlanta. This is CNN Headline News. You're in tune with the world.
Unofficial efforts to obtain a captured Navy flyer's release continue. Hello, I'm Gary Warner. Jesse Jackson met with captured U.S. aviator Robert Goodman today in Damascus. Tomorrow, Jackson hopes to talk with Syrian President Assad concerning conditions for the Navy flyer's release. Jackson says his Syrian trip is already a success, even though he may not be able to bring Goodman home with him. CNN's Jim Clancy has more from Damascus.
Picture for my friends back on the ship.
Lieutenant Robert Goodman smiled and showed off his Navy Squadron T-shirt New Year's Eve, saying perhaps that underneath it all, he remained a combat pilot. He said he was delighted with the visit from Reverend Jesse Jackson and his delegation, but he stopped short of endorsing their mission.
I'm not a politician, I'm a naval officer, so I'm going to stay out of that and just let people who are responsible for getting me out of here,
Goodman appeared happy and said he was being well treated. Reverend Jackson passed along a letter from Goodman's mother, and although it does not appear likely the Navy flyer will be handed over to him, Jackson believes something has been accomplished.
The whole world knows that the release of Lieutenant Goodman would be a giant step toward peace.
Earlier in the day, Jackson and a delegation of religious leaders and his political supporters from the U.S. held talks with Syrian Foreign Minister Abdul Halim Qadam to discuss Goodman's release. Jackson says he's trying to accomplish it on high moral grounds.
We cannot allow this confrontation to continue without the broadest base movement of people that we can mobilize in our country to make a moral appeal for our government to go another way.
Jackson has repeatedly said his visit to Damascus was purely humanitarian, totally non-political, but his stand against the Reagan administration here and his political campaigning in the U.S. make that difficult to believe. The effects of his visit here and whose purposes they will serve best cannot be assessed at this moment. But for Jesse Jackson, the outspoken Democratic politician, they could create problems in the future. Jim Clancy, CNN, Damascus.
American peacekeepers in Lebanon are taking seriously a threat from a group called the Islamic Holy War. The Muslim extremists promise more terrorist attacks if U.S. and French troops do not leave Lebanon by New Year's Day. The Islamic group claims responsibility for the truck bombings that killed 241 U.S. servicemen and 58 French paratroopers in Beirut. Presidential candidate Walter Mondale today called for the withdrawal of all U.S. Marines from Lebanon within 45 days. Mondale describes President Reagan's Lebanon policy as illusion, reaction, and drift. The Reagan administration says it has no response for Mondale's call for a quick withdrawal of U.S. troops from Beirut. In his radio address today, Mr. Reagan defended both his foreign and economic policies. CNN's Dean Reynolds reports.
In less than a month, most everyone expects Mr. Reagan to be officially running for re-election. For now, the president remains in a self-imposed political limbo. But his recent remarks, such as Saturday's radio address on the meaning of 1983, clearly signal a willingness for one last hurrah.
1983 was the 207th year for our grand old republic. Though the year had its measure of hardship and even tragedy, it was a time when we Americans acted with courage, self-confidence, and vigor.
Sensitive to charges that his policies have been too high a price to pay for an economic recovery that still shows unemployment at better than 8%, Mr. Reagan defended himself.
I said from the beginning it would take time for our economic program to work. You can't cure 25 years of failed economic policies overnight.
On foreign policy, especially the Middle East, again, a defense.
In Lebanon, the road to peace has proven long and hard. But there has been progress that would have been impossible without our Marines and the other troops in the multinational peacekeeping force.
Summing up, 1983, said the president, was a good year for America. But storm clouds aren't far away, especially now that Democratic presidential frontrunner Walter Mondale has called for a quick withdrawal of U.S. Marines in Lebanon. To Mondale, the White House says, quote, "We haven't reacted to campaign rhetoric in the past, and we will continue to follow that policy," unquote. But nobody here is saying how long that policy will hold. Dean Reynolds, CNN, with the president in California.
This is CNN Headline News. In Nigeria, military leaders say they have seized power from the civilian government in a bloodless coup. In a radio broadcast from Nigeria's capital, Major General Muhammad Buhari said he has taken over with humility and a deep sense of responsibility. Military officers accused the civilian government of plunging Nigeria into a serious economic predicament. At least 12 people are dead and close to 40 hurt following an earthquake early today in Pakistan. The tremor, which measured 6.5 on the Richter scale, collapsed several dozen homes. The magnitude of a second jolt in the same mountainous area in North Pakistan is not yet known. 1983 was a year that brought many changes to Japan. Prime Minister Nakasone managed to retain political power, and natural disasters plagued the country. Still, the Japanese are optimistic about the year to come. Joanna Johnston reports.
The big news here in Japan has been politics. First came the bribery conviction in October of former Prime Minister Kakue Tanaka for his part in the Lockheed scandal of the early 1970s. Tanaka's conviction eventually forced Prime Minister Yasuhiro Nakasone to dissolve the Japanese parliament and hold new elections earlier this month. The result, a surprising defeat for Nakasone and his Liberal Democratic Party. But through a series of compromises with independent candidates and a minor party, Nakasone fought his way back to at least temporary control of the Japanese government. But earlier this year, the road for Nakasone was not so bumpy, as the Japanese launched a diplomatic blitz of summitry. In January, Nakasone visited Seoul, paving the way for improved relations between America's staunchest allies in Northeast Asia. In April, the Japanese premier was in Washington for a round of talks with Reagan, then on to Williamsburg, where for the first time Japan acted like and was treated as a full partner in the economic summit. The Ron and Yasu relationship developed in the spring and sprung into full bloom in November, when Reagan paid a return call to Tokyo. On May 26, a massive earthquake shook northern Japan, touching off a killer tidal wave that left 74 confirmed dead and 28 others still missing. In late July, it was rain-triggered landslides, claiming 112 lives in 2 prefectures. In September, disaster came in the form of Typhoon Forest. And on October 3rd, Mother Nature blew her top, this time on the small island of Miyake, south of Tokyo. No one was killed, but 503 homes were destroyed. There were some upbeat stories in the news this past year. The first came early in January, when an experimental tunnel was completed beneath the cold waters of the Tsugaru Straits. Japan's main island of Honshu had been directly linked with the northernmost main island of Hokkaido. And Japan's perennial favorites were back in the news with the unveiling of their new $400,000 panda playground at Tokyo's Ueno Zoo. Joanna Johnston, CNN, Tokyo.
You're in tune with the world.
Please listen carefully to a very special TV offer. How many times has this happened to you? Needle and thread in the straw, scissors down here, pins must be around here somewhere. Now, a beautiful solution. The Home Chest, the fabulous new organizer that puts all the contents of a whole sewing room into one compact, easy-to-use sewing center. The Home Chest, 12 individual compartments, each with clear, snap-tight window lids that let you see your materials at a glance. All by itself, it's a beauty, but we don't send it all by itself, not by a long way, because the Home Chest comes to you packed full with over 200 beautiful gifts. 50 spools of thread and free needles, wide needles, fine needles, 50 needles in all, plus a thimble, a tape measure, still counting, way over 100 pieces, and still more free gifts. We'll also send 2 needle threaders, 100 color-tip straight pins, and a whole bag of buttons. One beautiful gift after another. Now, way over 200 pieces in all, and all beautifully organized in the Home Chest. And yes, there is still more. We'll also send this excellent pair of dressmaker shears. On this special TV offer, let us send you the magnificent Home Chest Sewing Organizer with 12 enclosed compartments with over 200 free gifts. Needles, thread, tape measure, pins, buttons, craftsman scissors, all for the incredible price of just $29.95. Keep your free gifts even if you return Home Chest for a full refund. Look again. All your sewing and mending needs in one fabulous compact compartment, brimming over with over 200 free gifts. You need one yourself, and it's the perfect present. Have your credit card ready and call now for rush delivery. Here's how to order.
Call toll-free 1-800-257-1234. In New Jersey, call 800-232-6966 or send $29.95 plus $4 shipping and handling to Home Chest, Box 7500, Atlanta, Georgia 30357. Or call toll-free 1-800-257-1234. 1-800-257-1234.
A number of people run into a driving dilemma on New Year's Eve. They're too tipsy to drive themselves, and they don't have enough money for cab fare. Well, this year in Burbank, California, a towing company is offering a solution to that problem. CNN's Andrew Holtz reports.
Many taxi companies around the country offer New Year's Eve revelers free rides home. That certainly helps keep some drunk drivers off the road, but it also separates the driver from his or her car. So at WT Towing, owner Bill Toth decided to offer a free ride for the car as well.
This way we would alleviate that and get the car and themselves safely home the same night.
Ads in a Burbank newspaper offer New Year's Eve partygoers a free tow home. The ride would normally cost $40 to $50. Toth says he and his drivers can afford to donate their services one night a year, and he hopes the free ride offer will finally give drivers something nice to say about tow truck operators.
The towing industry suffers from a poor public image, I think, which is really not our fault. We repossess cars, impound cars, and people aren't happy about that. I hope so, and I hope next year possibly we can expand this to a state level with other tow operators being involved.
WT Towing will deliver car and driver anywhere within a 10-mile radius of Burbank. But Toth says he can't satisfy every request from inebriated clients.
What if somebody asks to ride in the back with their car? Well, we can't do that. The police will pull us over and give us a ticket or take the driver to jail. So we'll squeeze them in, and if they have a large party, we'll make 2 trips. We'll get them home one way or the other.
And Toth hopes by towing cars for free on New Year's Eve, he won't have to pick up as many wrecks on New Year's morning. Andrew Holtz, CNN, Burbank, California.
Across the nation, safety experts are urging motorists to leave the driving to non-drinkers and traveling to New Year's celebrations. They're also advising travelers to slow down and use safety belts. The National Safety Council estimates between 150 and 300 people will lose their lives in highway accidents during the holiday weekend. An escapee from a Portland, Maine halfway house faces a second-degree murder charge in Nashua, New Hampshire. Police say Ernest Shackford stabbed an 18-year-old Nashua woman yesterday and then attacked shoppers at a nearby shopping center, killing one of them. Shackford is also wanted by police in Portland, Maine, where he will be charged with holding a woman and her daughter hostage on Thursday. In Miami, police officer Luis Alvarez goes on trial Tuesday for the killing of a black man in the city's Overtown area. The shooting on December 28, 1982, sparked 3 days of racial riots in the city. Alvarez says he believes Neville Johnson was about to pull a gun on him at the time of the shooting. Federal agents in Los Angeles are holding an Avianca Airlines jet until the carrier posts an irrevocable $500,000 letter of credit. That follows yesterday's seizure of over $1.5 million worth of cocaine hidden in the Colombian plane. 2 Western Airlines ground crewmen who allegedly tried to recover the drug have been arrested. Funeral services in Buffalo, New York today drew more than 800 mourners to St. Joseph's Cathedral, and more than 4,000 firefighters from the U.S. and Canada came to pay their respects to 4 firemen killed in a propane gas explosion at a warehouse last week. A 5th firefighter was remembered in a separate service. That warehouse fire in Buffalo is being blamed on the illegal storage of propane gas tanks in the building. In the wake of the tragedy, federal authorities have arrested an Australian man who was working at the warehouse at the time of the explosion. Damian Rice is accused of violating his visa. Police say he was the driver of the forklift from which the propane tanks fell just before Tuesday's explosion. Just after a successful fundraising season, the Salvation Army in Akron, Ohio lost one of its main warehouses to fire. CNN's Greg Morrison has the story.
When Akron firefighters arrived at the Salvation Army's warehouse Friday night, they found an inferno fed by propane tanks and natural gas. Witnesses had reported hearing explosions even as the fire raged.
It evidently was solvents and then all kinds of other flammable materials such as clothing and so forth, see? So just a little bit of everything that would burn was in there.
The warehouse held the Salvation Army's supply of clothing as well as other supplies for the needy of Akron.
There were so many things in there that were just that we use on a regular basis. All the clothing, all the furnishings, all the things that we supply for people were in there. And of course, there's no insurance on that because it keeps